In this video, you join me at Watkins Glen for the opening round of the start of my first proper championship in iRacing. Hey guys, and welcome along to another video. If this is your first time here and you are watching all sorts of sim racing related stuff, subscribe now and click the bell icon so you get notified of every video I upload and you don't miss a thing. As you can see, we are back on iRacing. Now, in qualification for this race we put in a 1 minute 47 I think it was, which to be quite honest I'm quite happy with, considering I've never ever driven this track before in any sims. It's not in GT Sport or Assetto Corsa Competizione or anything, so a time like that around Watkins Glen for me is something I'm quite happy with. We are in 11th out of a 25 odd car field, something like that, and we are actually car number 19, so that means we're the 19th best in the field. Therefore, as I've qualified in 11th, I've out-qualified my expected position, which is, to be honest, quite a good thing. So you join me here on the pace lap. Yes, the pace lap. This is what I absolutely love about iRacing. The realism to even have an actual warm-up lap with a pace car. You can probably see it up the front there, the Porsche, is completely unrivaled, and that is why I like this game so much, and I'm so keen to bring it in video form and introduce it to you guys who haven't seen it before. So we're just about to start the race here. There you go, the lights have gone green, and you can see in the rear view this guy in the Merc gets an absolutely fantastic start and times it pretty much perfectly. He's going to come down the outside of us into turn one. You can see the spotter there who I have silenced working away, telling me that he's on my outside, so I need to take a tighter line which is going to allow him to carry more speed and go round the outside there. But that's not a problem. It's a 40-minute race. It's considered a sprint in iRacing, but a 40-minute race for me is quite a long one. So the aim here, even more so, is to stay out of trouble. That's why I'm lifting off a little bit earlier, so that I don't just career into the back of anyone. Damage is on and is absolutely devastating. If you guys saw me and Charlie in the Bathurst 12 hour, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about there. But another element is that the tyres and brakes are both cold. This is an actual thing in iRacing, so you've got to wait for those to warm up. They take a lap or so to warm up. So I'm going to let the race settle down here. This is a true GT race in every sense, including the strategy here. Even though it's called a sprint, as I say, it's still a GT race. I'm going to hopefully finish this race, to be quite honest. That's the main aim. Following the issues that I have had in the IMSA races, or IMSA as I call it, and the 12 hours at Bathurst, I am just going to try and minimise my mistakes, try and keep it as clean as possible, and see where we finish at the end. So as we finish the first lap here, coming through turn number 10 here, which you do not want to run wide into, and turn 11, the final corner, we complete lap number 1. We've only lost one position, but more importantly we've completed it unscathed. So we're going to get our head down here and try and push on to capitalise on this good clean start and see how high we can finish up the field. We're going to jump ahead here to lap number 4. Things are going well. We've not had any issues yet. We've settled down into a good rhythm. We're keeping pace with the guys up in front, and consistency here is so important, mainly because of the damage which is on, remember, and we're about to see the first victim of consistency. Keep your eyes up ahead as the Z4 bins it coming out at turn number 7, and we're going to go up to 11th. Fantastic news for us there, and I think if we could get, well, if we could hang on and try and capitalise on anybody else's mistakes, stay consistent and bring home a top 10 finish in this first race of this championship, that would be a fantastic start. So we are in the 4th split of 5 splits, so we're in the 4th highest race out of 5, so second last, but it doesn't matter. I'm very new to iRacing still, so I'm not really too hung up on that. One day we'll try and get to the top splits, but we're going to have to wait for that one because there's some seriously enthusiastic drivers on this one who've been doing it for a long time, including professionals, the likes of Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, who are currently F1 drivers. So I'm not really too worried, as I said, about where I am split wise for the moment. So this is probably quite a good opportunity to introduce this championship and how I arrived at choosing this championship. So when I first started iRacing about 3 months ago, I started in the Mazdas in the Global MX-5 Cup, which is essentially the kindergarten of iRacing. Everybody starts there. It's also known as Rookies, which is where I really understood iRacing and how it works and all that sort of stuff. I was completely new to it, but the Mazdas gave me a good sense of how iRacing worked, not only from a driving standpoint, but also how to sort of navigate around the menus of the game. So we started off in Mazdas. We did about 6 races, I think it was, or 6 rounds. We did many more races, but 6 rounds, and then got the required safety rating to step up to IMSA, or IMSA as I call it. We did a couple of races there which, to be honest, went completely wrong. What I found is that it was like the Mazdas, but in terms of lots of contact and stuff, but people were just going much faster because they were in GT3 and GTE cars, which made it even more sort of treacherous. So I decided I did what I needed to do, or I was going to do what I needed to do to get out of that, and that's exactly what I did. I worked my way up to a B-class license, which has enabled me to unlock some of the top championships in the game, which includes this one, the Vrs Sprint Championship. Now this championship is 12 rounds over 12 race weeks, and these run from Tuesday to Tuesday. So essentially there's loads and loads of sessions, or races if you like, that are held over that week period, and you can enter any one. And essentially if you do 1 to 4, your best score counts, and when you do more than 4, it essentially averages stuff out. But I'm going to go one and done for every single one, like you have in real life, which will allow me, and it's kind of the same way, to be honest, the way that I view Gran Turismo as well. I want to really just take one shot where possible, unless I have an absolute disaster which I feel doesn't represent my talent level or my commitment level. I'll have another go, but generally if I don't make any mistakes, I'm going to accept that I came where I came, and I'm going to move on to the next round. So as I say, we've got 12 rounds over 12 race weeks. This is a 40-minute long race. They're all 40-minute long races, which is classed as a sprint in iRacing terms. And you'll need to essentially have one pit stop. They forced you to do it with the fuel levels. You're not forced to change tyres, and I probably won't do in this one, or any of them, to be honest, following advice that I was given, but I will need to refuel. Now the races and the race tracks that are involved in this championship that I'll be bringing to you every single week, I'm going to cover every single one this time. I'm not going to flake out of it like I did in the Mazdas or the IMSA stuff. Well, I didn't really flake out, to be honest. It was all part of building up to this. So now I'm at the championship that I want to be at, or be participating in. I'm going to make sure that I cover it for you all. So this is round number 1 at Watkins Glen International. Next week we're at Bathurst. Then we're at Road Atlanta, Sebring International Raceway, Laguna Seca, Lime Rock Park, Road America, the Nordschleife, the Circuit of the Americas, Monza, Donington, and then the final round is going to be at Imola. Now, I think you will agree, and any race fan will agree, these are pretty amazing tracks that we've got lined up for this championship, which is another reason I chose this over IMSA, alongside the skill level of the participants. To be honest, as I've been talking, you're probably seeing as completely different. There's no lunging, there's no nothing like that, there's not really any mistakes. It's very much like a real life GT race. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm really excited to be bringing this. I'll be bringing it to you in a weekly video just like this, just like my GT Sport videos, which I hope will get loads and loads of you interested and maybe even introduce some of you to iRacing. Now, if you do decide to join up and start iRacing, please check the link down below. That's my referral link. I get, I think it's $10 in iRacing credits if you sign up using that. So if you're going to sign up anyway, I would really appreciate it if you could use that link. Rejoining the action here at the start of lap number 10. We're about halfway now. We're still in 11th, but much closer now to the guys in front. As you can see, the Ferrari's holding up the Merc, and if an opportunity arises, I'm going to take it. So we're coming up the hill here, and we're making our way through to the trickiest part of the track, having to get out the throttle there so I don't make contact with the Merc. But we're coming up to the inner loop. Now, keep your eye on the Ferrari here. He's going to get it all wrong under that sustained pressure from the Merc, and he is going to lose it. I'm hoping he doesn't come back on the track and hit us, which we have managed to avoid, and we are now up into 10th place. You can see it there on the relative on the right, which is going to tell me where I am in comparison to people around me. So with that, on the far left hand side of that, you've got the place that you're in, then you've got the door number, then you've got the driver's name, and you have got, as I'm getting a real wriggle on there having to catch that, the final bit you've got is the time. Below that you've got what lap we're on and how quick our last lap was. God, while I was talking there, I really almost lost it. It's completely different to GT Sport in terms of the physics, so I was pretty surprised and quite happy that I caught that one. But we live to fight another day. We're up to 10th place now, and as I say, if we can hold on to this, I will be very happy. I've just realised that I haven't actually given you guys my usual update and a bit of a background around the track. So not everyone may be familiar with this track, but this is Watkins Glen International Raceway, also known as the Glen. Now, this is located in New York State in the United States of America, and this layout that we're on at the moment is known as the Long Course, which includes part of it called the Boot. Now, this is a 3.4 mile circuit that has had a number of changes to it over the years, most notably the introduction of this bit that we're coming up to, which is known as the Inner Loop. Now, this is a bus stop style chicane, very much like the iconic one we all know from Spa, and this was introduced to slow people down when arriving at this corner here, the outer loop, and that was done because of two significant crashes. Now, in 1989, Jeff Bodine broke his legs at the outer loop following a puncture or a tyre blowout, I think it was, and when he tried to brake he ended up in the barrier, but because of the speed it broke both his legs. And unfortunately, 2 years later, a NASCAR driver called JT McDuffie actually died at that corner as well because of the speeds involved. So they introduced that bus stop chicane to slow people down, and they called it the Inner Loop as it precedes the outer loop, which is where everybody was crashing. But there you go. I hope that gives those who aren't familiar with Watkins Glen a bit of a background. And as you can probably see, or well, I hope that you saw, the spotter, it came up with the little red writing, was telling me that I have 5 laps worth of fuel left. So I'm going to try and stay consistent here and not make any mistakes before the pit stops. So my spotter here is about to tell me I have 2 laps of fuel remaining. You can see me here flicking through everything on the right hand side, trying to work out how long is left whilst racing, trying to keep this thing on the track, which will allow me to work out how many laps of fuel I need. So you can see we've got 15ish minutes remaining, and I have made an assumption based on gallons. So there you go, that's the fuel I'm going to put in, which I think in hindsight was way too much. So I'm going to come into the pits here, brake, slam on the brake limiter. You can see it there, it's now come up in blue. and I'm going to look for my spotter. I'm still messing around with it, you can see it with the mouse there, and I'm really looking for some help with this and some suggestions, because to be honest, I had an absolute nightmare. I also had a nightmare here. I did a Lewis Hamilton, well, not a Lewis Hamilton, but I jumped too far, which lost me some time, and I had to reverse back into the pit box. 42 seconds later, I'm done refueling. Now I have a horrible feeling that was too much. Well, I actually know it was too much because I've obviously already done this race, but for those watching this for the first time, I have a horrible feeling that I may have overdone it. I've fallen right the way down to last place. Oh no, not quite last place, and the way I know that is by looking at the relative. So obviously I'm in yellow there, and the people below me, or on the same lap as me, are in white. Those two red guys, you can see are in first and second position. They are 12 seconds behind me, but they are a lap ahead. So in 12 seconds time, if they catch up with me, then I will be lapped. So I'm really struggling at this point to understand what's happened. I'm flicking around with the fuel, and I mess around, and then this happens. So at the time I was swearing pretty loudly, but I've calmed down now and I can just say bugger. But that is not what I wanted at all. As you can see, the guys who were 12 seconds behind me, the leaders, are now 5 seconds or 4ish seconds ahead. So I've lost in the region of 20 more seconds on top of the fuel debacle that I had earlier. Oh, what an absolute disaster. So now I've got the guy who's in 22nd place, less than 2 seconds behind. So I'm just going to have to try and keep it consistent, try and reset, try and woosah, and see how many positions we can make back up before the end of this race as everybody else pits in. If there are any iRacing veterans out there, I'd really like to know how you calculate how much fuel you need. Please let me know in the comment section down below, because this was probably the biggest problem for me. Spins and stuff I can fix, and I'm fairly confident I only spam because I was thinking about other stuff. You can still see me here flicking through all the adjustments, and I really just need to know how you guys do it. So if you have any tips, please let me know in the comment section down below. So I've fast forwarded now 10 minutes to the final lap. You can see there the white flag is up there in the top left, indicating that it's the final lap. And once everything panned out and once everyone made their pit stops, I ended up in 15th place. So I lost 5 places through the refueling and spin related issues, which I'm a little bit disappointed with, but all in all, trying to keep it positive, it hasn't been an awful outing. If it wasn't for those two things, we could have been on for a top 10 finish. I felt that I had the consistency, but the only issue I had is when I was thinking about things too much and it was taking my eyes off the road. But I did what I wanted to do. I finished the race, I didn't bin it, generally didn't have too many issues, and the main learning point for me out of this one, and it's always important to learn so you can move on and get better, is that I need to understand the refueling. Now if I had just a nightmare and I crashed and there was no learning points, then it would have been for me an absolute waste of time. But because I learned about the fuel, or I need to learn about the fuel, it is definitely not a waste of time and something that will help me develop to help me get better for future races. But as we come across the line here to bring home 15th place, let's see how it has affected our iRating and safety rating. So here we go then. I actually lost 3 iRating points, but I did gain 0.01 safety rating points. I'll be looking to build on both of them throughout this championship. But for now guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.